Welcome to Story Hour, a virtual meetup hosted by Wolf and Heron.
I was 45 years old when I moved back to Colorado with 2 kids and 2 dogs. I had left my husband and I was now single. I wanted to have some fun, take some chances, but basically I wanted to say yes again instead of, I'll think about it. And Keith was a younger colleague. We had met at yoga teacher training back in Boston, and he was headed to California to where he was going to start his new life. He wanted to spend a few days with us in Colorado and maybe hike Conundrum Hot Springs. Now, it was mid-October. Now, I knew Keith had some great outdoor skills, but he also had the confidence of the really good-looking, and he was reckless and I think a little bit arrogant. I had mentioned the altitude sickness, and it was mid-October. But he really wanted me to come with him, and he also told me I was no fun. And I said, well, okay. I took my boots and my old backpack and left the kids with some friends, and I said yes. So we headed up the next morning to Aspen and spent the night in a cabin a couple miles from the trailhead and watched the weather on TV. And there were these like blue-gray, big clouds sitting over the wilderness area, the Maroon Bells wilderness area. And the weatherman said those clouds were going to drop 2 feet of snow the next day. Anyway, so I turned to Keith and said, well, we tried, we made the effort. And he reached over and patted me on the knee and said, you worried too much. And I said, well, there is altitude sickness, but snow. And, he just laughed. And I said, okay, let's go. I said yes. So off we went the next morning. 2 hours into our hike, it's 9 miles, headed up to 11,000 feet. Keith got really sick, and it snowed. It snowed so hard that we lost the trail. 10 hours later, we make it to Conundrum Hot Springs. We pitched the tent in the dark after shoveling snow to make space for the tent in the dark. I was really angry, but I was more concerned about our survival. Anyway, the next morning I woke up and I went outside the tent, and it was a beautiful sunny day and 3 feet of snow on the ground. And I was like, this is awesome. Not 2 feet, 3 feet. So the weatherman was wrong. And I looked back at Keith and I thought for just a second, holy shit, this guy is dead. Now, my next thought, and I admit it, was how am I going to carry his sorry ass body down this mountain? Anyway, so his eyes open, he got up, went outside, went over to the hot springs, took off all his clothes and got in. Now, I don't get naked that easily, but I did hike 9 miles up the mountain in a snowstorm. I'm going to get in these hot springs. So I did it too. And I said, yes, I'm going to get naked here. A few minutes later, I look up and I see these same blue-gray clouds. And I think, holy shit, it's going to snow again. The sun's gone. So I get out and start packing, and I keep telling Keith, get out, get out. Well, 30 minutes later, he gets out. And we head down what we hoped was the path, because any trace of us was long gone. So we're headed down, and Keith is getting sicker and sicker, and we stop more and more often. We couldn't even speak to each other. I was mad, but he had no strength. And then I thought, oh my God, what happens if my kids have to grow up with me, have to grow up without their mother? And they would also, I knew that, be very mad at me for making this stupid ass decision to hike Conundrum in mid-October. But that's when I thought, wait a minute, I'm strong. I'm a long distance runner and I teach Kundalini yoga. If anyone was going to die on this mountain, it would be Keith. And that's when I saw the sign. It said, trailhead 1 mile. So I ran down the trailhead, dumped my backpack, ran back up, and there was Keith lying on a boulder, eyes closed, backpack off to the side. And once again, I thought, holy shit, Keith is dead. And then my next thought was, well, it's only a mile to the trailhead. I could drag his body down that far. But then he opened his eyes once again. I shouldered his backpack. We headed down the mountain, got to the truck, drove to Basalt, got a motel. And that night, Keith, newly revived, says, wow, that was an awesome adventure. I found the trail in deep snow all the way up and all the way back. I can't wait to tell the story. Now, we have two different perspectives on this adventure. But I thought, well, he's just an optimistic guy, Mr. Positive. And I was just a curmudgeon and very judgy. So I thought, I'm going to try harder. So I tried hard for 6 years before Keith and I finally broke up. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to stop saying yes to everything and start listening to me. But then I think about that, that 45-year-old person, me dragging a 33-year-old man without the sense he was born with down a mountain in knee-deep snow in a raging blizzard, carrying his fucking 50-pound backpack. And I think, wow, would I say yes to that again? No.
Yay! Thank you, Mary. That was awesome. Okay. First piece of feedback. What was awesome about Mary's story? What should she hold on to? What was great? What was compelling? Let's celebrate what was awesome.
I'll just start because I thought it was great. And that's the reason why I come to these nowadays is I'm just here to listen to Mary's stories. So it was perfect. I loved it. It might have been just a little bit too long, but I loved the emotion. I loved the visualizations that and in fact, I have a story similar, like where I got stuck. I didn't have a Keith, but I got stuck on a trail with the snow. So you brought me back to my own, I could visualize what you were going through. So I thought that was great.
I really like the whole part about the whole like saying yes, but sometimes saying yes is, you don't always have to just say yes. Like there can be caveats. There definitely can be caveats.
Yeah, you have that thread that as one of the sort of subtext, this thread of say yes, and you even come back to that and you're like, you know what, I said yes. You know what, I said yes, and then the way you end with, would I say yes to that? No. I think that was very nice wrap up. It was a very clean, very crisp wrap up, and we knew it was the end because of how it tied everything full circle. Kara, I thought you had thought.
I think Bart just mentioned this, but I did really appreciate some of the visual details that you added in terms of like the blue-gray clouds, and the whole journey in and of itself was very visual. And because of that, I never got lost. I was with you. I was picturing it from beginning to end, and it was very easy to follow along. It didn't feel like, okay, you could cut some stuff out, but it wasn't like a 6-minute story where I'm like, what is happening? I'm lost. I was with you the whole time. And a lot of that is your language choice.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And well, I think someone said it was kind of long. If there's a place where I could cut it, I'd appreciate that.
Sure.
Info.
Let's talk about opportunities for experimentation. Go ahead, Bart.
I would say you could easily cut out the part about like the divorce and the meeting this person, all that stuff. You could start the whole story with Keith laying on a boulder. You think he's dead, out on a trail, and say like, and I said yes to this. Like that would set up the whole story of the whole saying yes thing. Mm-hmm. And then go back to like how you got there.
Yeah. Okay. Some story structure finagling. I think your context, you can take a look at your context. You're 45 years old, you're newly divorced, it's mid-October. There's Keith, he's good looking. He has this reckless confidence. Some of those details are relevant. Not all of them are. You can probably play there. I think also, I was waiting for this like getting naked to come back, and then never did. And maybe the idea was like, oh, it's just one more thing I'm saying yes to. And I don't know that was necessarily because like that doesn't, there wasn't an experience about that saying yes that you should have said no. And so it doesn't quite hit your theme in the same way. So maybe it's context you can cut as well.
I'm not sure what you mean, that I didn't get in, or
no, because so your point, sort of the takeaway at the end is you don't always have to say yes to everything. Listen to yourself, right? And so what you want your story to be about is all the things that you said yes to that maybe you shouldn't have said yes to.
right.
And your vignette of getting naked, saying yes to that, there isn't the counterpoint of like, actually, that was a terrible idea to say yes to that. It was just this adventure that you decided to say yes to. And so unless
we did end up together for 6 years.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess I don't know if I got that point across. We weren't together. We were just friends when he arrived in Colorado.
Right.
But
okay.
that adventure started our relationship.
That started the relationship. Okay.
Yeah.
And then maybe you should have said, is the implication you should have said no to the relationship altogether?
Yes.
Okay. So then I think then that makes more sense, and see if you can connect all those dots more tightly.
Okay.
Or there's a version of the story that's perhaps more about Keith and you, and then there's a version of the story that's maybe more just about you. And so what I'll offer that I was hungry for that's not going to help your length comment is that the details, the visual, the scenery, the events were fascinating and interesting. And there were hints of some emotional journeying as well. And at the same time, you could have gone deeper into that, I think, because like you were attached, and it was like, it's more vivid, perhaps, and more obvious, the literal adventure. And at the same time, what's going through your head, when you're beginning this hike, what are the trepidations? You reveal a tiny little bit, like you say, I was angry, I was mad, or this was awesome. And at the same time, I like the payoff of saying yes or saying no, I think is less than it could have been if we understood more real, like what you were actually going through in your head, as opposed to just with your feet.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
I think, yes, play more. I had that same thought, was like, play more with the emotion. The, oh my God, he's dead. I didn't know if I should be like, my heart has stopped, or if I should be laughing. Like I was actually kind of laughing listening to you.
Well, it's just what I wanted.
Yeah. Okay. And so like, how do you play with the, like making sure that emotion comes across in a way that like I can feel it? I don't know. Something to think about.
Honestly, I was a little embarrassed to think that the only thought I had was how I'm going to get his body down this mountain. And that's true. That's a true thought. This is before I thought about dating him. I just thought, well, now what do? I get a tent, then I got these backpacks, and I got a fucking body. Anyway, I don't know why I thought I could have left it. Who cares? He's dead. I feel
like that's really accurate, though, of like, that happens. Like your first thought in situations like that is not what you think it would be. It's just about logistics. And like, this is really going to be a long mess, and I don't want to do the paperwork, and like that kind of thing is what comes to mind first. So I think it's great. I think it adds like a lot of like authenticity and like a very real element to this, because it feels like something you would think. Like, it makes sense to me that one would think that way. And I agree with what Kara and Stephanie are saying about like the details and sort of streamlining some of that. I love the way you tell stories, by the way. I think I've only heard you tell two, but both of them are so amusing. And like just the voice that you have, I really can't like think of good like critique because I'm so busy laughing. But I would agree with what they said of like thinking about some of the context, I wanted to, I agree, of like seeing a little bit more of what you were thinking, because you also did a great job, even with the little bit that you did of like setting up this dichotomy between how you think and how Keith thinks. And I already have very little credibility in him. And so I would love to see more of what you think to like add to that dichotomy of like, you know, and at the time you might have dismissed it as, oh yeah, he's just an optimist. But like, if you add some more of that detail, it'll really help to make it clear why like you should have said no. And I think also maybe being a little bit more explicit about that, because I know Stephanie said that she picked up on that running theme of like, should have said no here, should have said no here, should have said no here. I don't know if I just like was not paying close enough attention, but I missed that a little bit. So I think being a little bit clearer about that, if you have to be, would help really drive that home. Yeah.
Yeah. I can be too subtle because you know how you're thinking about it in your head, but people aren't in my head. They're listening to my story, but I'm already making the leaps that the audience can't make because I haven't established, you know, how they can take that leap. So,
and I totally got it in the beginning and I got it at the end. So I agree with what Stephanie said, that like you wrapped it together very well in a circle, but I missed some of the sort of intermediate decision points that happened.
Yeah. Cause I've been in those situations and it is preoccupied. When you know you've made a bad decision, you said yes to something, you're not enjoying the hike. It's, you know, it's this constant, you're trying to fight back the worry, but it's there the whole time. Yeah.
Allison, did you also want to say something?
I was just going to say, like, I think, you know, what made that the part so funny was like, oh, like, is he dead? You know, that's free. But then like you brought in the like humor about it. I really like that. Like, you know, it's kind of like the roller coaster of like dealing with those types of situations. But yeah, I agree with what everyone else is saying. I think, I think it was a great story for sure.
Great. Okay.
I just wanted to ask, did you think that when, you know, I said, I tried really hard for, you know, 6 years until I finally broke up with Keith. Was that like too much of a what? A disconnect?
I don't think so. I thought it had an element of humor to it, and that kind of fit with the story.
I did do a double take.
I did too.
Yeah.
I wondered if I'd missed something.
Yeah, I did too.
I don't hate it. Like I wouldn't say change it, but I did wonder, did I miss something?
Okay. That's good. That's good to know. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Same with me. I had the same impression.
Okay.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you, Mary. I know you've got to go soon. So we'll let you go.
All right. Thank you so much, everyone. I really appreciate that. It's going to help.
Visit wolfandheron.com to find out more about our story hours.